For the longest time, hip-hop has been viewed as a young man's sport. Up until recently, with the likes of Nas and Jay-Z dropping classic albums 30 years into their recording career, it was rare to see an older rapper thriving late in the game. For many up-and-coming rappers, to have one hot year where they dominate is difficult. To continue that streak for more than 1 year is damn near impossible. But to extend that streak into a 5-year run, well, that's one of the hallmarks of being a GOAT, isn't it? Now, let's get into the list. Ever since his 2006 debut, The Stellar Port of Miami, Rick Ross has amassed one of the most enviable catalogs in hip-hop today. A consummate professional that doesn't rely on big hype cycles or huge singles. Ross just keeps its simple great music packaged into great albums, dropped consistently. When you talk to rap fans about Redman, it's a general consensus that he's a dope MC. But I don't think most of them know just how dope of a rapper he is. Reggie was low-key the best rapper alive of the 90s. From his solo work to collaborations with EPMD, he always brought out the funk and destroyed every verse he spit. What happened on Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers will never happen in hip-hop again. 9 completely unique and incredible MCs breaking out of Shaolin and lacing killer verses over Reese's crazy production. It was just unheard of then. Out of the 9 rappers, it was Method Man with the husky voice and butter flow whose star shone the brightest. Between 1993 and 1997, Meth emerged as the biggest star from the Wu. Was one of the few rappers who collaborated with both Pac and Big, and dropped one of the best and biggest rap singles of the 90s. While Cam'ron never managed to truly capture the King of New York crown during the early to mid-2000s, there was just too much heat at the time from Jay-Z, Nas, and 50. The Harlem legend racked up an incredible run during his time. In 2002 alone, he dropped 3 classic mixtapes with Dipset. Released his biggest album Come Home With Me. In the same year that Rakim dropped his landmark debut, Paid in Full, and shifted the rapping landscape, Big Daddy Kane released his debut single, the classic 12 Raw, which also contributed to the evolution of rhyming. Between 1987 and 1991, Kane was consistently in the conversation of the best rappers alive, often against peers like Rakim and Kool G Rap. And while he experienced a notable drop-off after It's a Big Daddy Thing, he still remains one of the greatest rappers of all time. As the story goes, after dropping their debut album Bum Rush the Show in 1987, and hitting the road with LL Cool J and Eric B. and Rakim, single inspired Public Enemy to record Rebel Without a Pause, and the accompanying It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. But it didn't stop there. Public Enemy's subsequent releases Fear of a Black Planet and Apocalypse 91, The Enemy Strikes Black, marked quite possibly the greatest album run. DMX's time at the top of the rap game wasn't long, but boy, did he make the most of it. During a time where Puffy and Bad Boy had the radio charts on lock, DMX came through representing the streets and became a phenomenon. The Yonkers rapper became the second hip-hop artist to top the charts twice. After turning in a star-making performance on Only Built for Cuban Links, Ghostface followed up with the classic Iron Man, spit the greatest Wu-Tang verse of all time on Impossible, according to RZA anyway, and dropped the first great rap album of the new millennium with Supreme Clientele. Ghost had previously showcased his abstract, off-the-wall rhyming style on earlier records, but on his sophomore album, he took it to a whole new dimension, resulting in one of the greatest Wu albums ever. You could chop up Chris's career into 2 distinct stages, and either one of them would be eligible for this list. For instance, you can take his Boogie Down days from 1987 to 1991, or you can pick his solo career from 1993 to 1997, where he dropped 3 incredible albums: Return of the Boom Bap, KRS-ONE, and I Got Next. The point is, longevity and consistency plays a huge role when you're talking about the GOAT rappers, and the Blastmaster has certainly made his case time and time again over the last 30 years. Honestly, you could just take MF Doom's output in 2004, and he would be eligible for his list. Mad Villainy and M Food are 2 of the best rap albums ever dropped, but Doom just kept going, and going, and going. Not to mention Operation, Doomsday is one of the greatest hip-hop debuts of all time. André 3000 is another rapper who has never been satisfied with maintaining the status quo and consistently pushed the boundaries of his craft with each subsequent release. At Lines, Aquemini and Stankonia, it's quite possibly the greatest 3-album run by a hip-hop act of all time, although you'd have to contend with Tribe and Mobb Deep if you want to go there. There was just something about Prodigy's voice, his creeping flow, his menacing threats, that made you think whenever you listened to him, this is the best rapper who has ever lived. The infamous Hell on Earth and Murder Music is as perfect a 3-album run as you can get. But then there's the guest verse that he dropped on I Shot Ya remix, even surrounded by hungry newcomers Keith Murray, Fat Joe and Foxy Brown, who all dropped career-high verses. Prodigy's Illuminati referencing imagery blew them all out the water. Scarface's run as part of the Gato Boys would be enough to warrant placement on this list. The Houston group's single, Mind Playing Tricks on Me, produced and written by Scarface, became one of the biggest and best songs of 1991. But then as a solo artist, Scarface dropped his magnum opus, The Diary, in 1994, almost a decade since debuting as a rapper. Even looking outside of his 5-year run, Scarface might be one of the few rappers in history to have dropped 3 classic albums in 3 different decades. From 1992 to 1994, with the release of The Chronic, Doggy Style, and The Murder Was the Case soundtrack, Snoop really was the rapper everyone else wanted to be. Isn't it saying something when Biggie, after selling 2 million records with Ready to Die, rapped on his sophomore album? After dropping his major label debut, Good Kid Mad City, which shook up the hip-hop world, Kendrick went on a victory lap, bodying guest features, left, right, and center. We don't even have to mention his verse on Control. There wasn't a rapper alive who was safe from the Compton Rappers Bar. Not unless you were Nas, Jay-Z, Eminem, or André. But the true greatness in Kendrick's 5-year run is that after the monumental success of Good Kid Mad City, he took a complete left turn and dropped a complex, jazz-funk masterpiece that completely pushed back on any expectation. Rakim's impact on the rhyming landscape was so profound and influential that you have to separate hip-hop history into 2 eras, before Rakim and after Rakim. With the release of their debut single, Eric B. is President, backed by the Even Harder With My Melody, Eric B. and Rakim completely changed rap. After all, this is the Queensbridge Prodigy who dropped the culture-shifting Illmatic, followed it up with 3 times platinum. It was written and dropped some of the best guest verses throughout the 90s. But the truth is, Nas' greatness is spread out over longer periods, rather than being jam. That being said, Nas' output between 94 and 98 alone is enough to vault him into the best rappers of all time. Lil Wayne's mixtape run is undisputedly the greatest of all time. After declaring that he was the very best rapper alive on the Carter II, he went on to prove the statement on Like Father, Like Son, on Dedication 2, on Da Drought 3, all while murdering guest appearances on the side. Then the Carter III dropped, and Lil Wayne was officially the best rapper alive and the biggest rapper alive. At the start of Kanye's 5-year run, he was making an ode to his big brother. By the end of it, he was collaborating on a full album with Jay-Z. For a rapper who grew admiring Jay and watching him afar during the 1999 Hard Knock Life tour, those Watch the Throne must have been hard to imagine. With each release during his epic run, Kanye shifted culture and pushed hip-hop music to its very edges. Graduation was so ahead of its time that it dictated music trends for the next few years. Jay-Z's run from 1998 to 2003 is about as perfect as he could have planned it. Once Volume 2 Hard Knock Life hit and became the best-selling album of his career, Jay ruled the rap game, dropping consistent multi-platinum #1s and staying on top of New Jacks by dropping scene-stealing features. During his 5-year run, the Roc-A-Fella Boss released 2 undisputed classic albums, both of which would be considered in the top 5 of his catalog, all before announcing his retirement. I don't think we're ever going to see another rapper again who was able to capitalize off his position as much as 50 Cent did, in as short a time. After making a name for himself in the streets and industry off a handful of classic mixtapes, 50 quickly captured the attention of Eminem and Dr. Dre. Once Get Rich or Die Tryin' dropped February 6, 2003, for any other rapper out there. But it wasn't that 50 Cent overwhelmed the rap game with his debut. It's also about the way he leveraged the success into a bunch of other things. Starting G-Unit Records, dropping Beg for Mercy at the end of 2003. Eminem was just the perfect combination of talent meets timing. A supremely gifted lyrical phenomenon from Detroit linking up with the greatest hip-hop producer of all time, who also had an uncanny ability to take the controversial and make it commercial. With M's 5-year run, you can look at it from a few different angles. What Biggie accomplished in 5 years is more than what 90% of all rappers have achieved in a 20-year career. Actually, you know what? What Big accomplished on life after death alone is more than what 90% of rappers have achieved in their lifetime. If you really want to understand the greatness of the Notorious B.I.G., then you just need to examine his sophomore album. Over the course of 25 tracks, the Brooklyn MC demonstrates his superiority across every facet of rapping. DG Premier said, "I think it's one of the best records he ever made." As soon as he was done with the vocals he goes, "Premier, I did it. I did it. I'm the greatest." And that was the last time I ever saw him. To be honest, you could take any of the top 5 rappers on this list, slide them into the top spot, and it would make sense. But for my money, Ice Cube has the strong claim for having the greatest 5-year run of all time. Rap fans these days don't really understand the true greatness of Ice Cube. Just peep his position on a lot of these GOAT lists. I think the younger hip-hop heads know that he's a West Coast legend and one of the most influential icons ever, but they don't know he's truly a one-of-a-kind rapper. Off the strength of his verse on The Symphony alone, Kool G Rap established himself as one of the most fearsome MCs of the 1980s. While Rakim and Kane are usually touted as the figureheads of lyrical rap from that era, G-Rap was always lurking in the shadows, waiting to completely shred a verse. During his run in the late 80s, early 90s, G-Rap transformed from a relentless queen spitter into one of the most influential rappers of all time. Legends like Nas, Biggie, Jay-Z, Raekwon, and Ghostface are all cut from the Kool G Rap mafioso cloth. It's actually crazy that Pac's 5-year run was pretty much the bulk of his entire recording career. He made his recording debut on Digital Underground's 1991 song Same Song, and passed in September 1996. Before Wayne, 50 Cent. Pac was the epitome of a prolific artist. Even during his early days, he was known for being restless in the studio and wanting to create music as quickly as possible.